All right, we are live on YouTube. Welcome to a very special episode of Navigating the Modern World with Eli. I'm so glad you could all join me here today, whether you're here watching live or on the replay. I'm going to be sharing some very important thoughts and information here today. There's a lot on my mind, and I'm not really feeling that great, to be honest with you. Yesterday was election day, and obviously, we all know the outcome of the election. I mean, it hasn't, I guess, been technically officially decided yet, but pretty much we all know that Donald Trump is going to be back in office. And I have my thoughts to share about that and how I feel it's not only going to affect me, but many other people in this country and globally as well. Even people that voted for Trump, it's going to affect you as well, whether you realize it or not. And while I'm not here to necessarily bash anyone for voting for Trump, I do have my thoughts and opinions, and I am going to share them here today. Even though I feel like the minority out here on YouTube, because there's a large presence of MAGA, Make America Great Again supporters, which are the Trump supporters. And, sometimes you just feel outnumbered no matter how positive of a message you're trying to put out and how much you truly care for people despite their political party preference or choice. But before we get to all of that, first of all, let me make sure that everything is rolling smoothly. Let me check out the back end of YouTube and make sure it is rolling well. And it looks like it is. And let me make sure that the YouTube notification has gone out. It looks like it has. And let me do a sound and video check. For Trump, I do have my thoughts and opinions, and I am going to share them here today. Even though I feel like the minority out here on YouTube, because there's a large presence of MAGA, Make America Great Again supporters, which are the Trump supporters. All right, everything seems to be rolling smoothly. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all to the show, despite your political party preference, despite who you voted for. I want to make one thing again very, very clear. I'm not here to attack anyone. That's not the type of person I am. Maybe I've come off that way in the past, but my intentions have always been to treat everyone the way I'd want to be treated. Despite your views, despite your political party preference, yada, yada, yada. But some people make it very difficult to deal with them because these people are very, very unreasonable. And I feel, here in the United States where I live in California, and we're going to specifically hone in on California where I live today because I've got a lot of stuff to share with you folks regarding how much California contributes to the U.S. And if you were not aware, California on its own, independent of the U.S., is the fifth largest economy in the world. Yet we get a lot of scrutiny, especially from these MAGA Trump supporters. We're called things such as California, right? Well, in my opinion, I think, Donald Trump is more of a communist than anyone out here in California. I've been called a liberal sack of shit many times by people out here on YouTube. Many, in my opinion, uneducated, uninformed, and most importantly, unreasonable people, in my opinion, of course. And a lot of those people that are uninformed, uneducated, and unreasonable, in my opinion, voted for Trump. Now, to make it very clear, I do have many Republican, aka conservative, aka Trump supporters that support my channel and that I consider good friends. As always, there's going to be an exception to every rule, because some people, despite their political differences, are able to be reasonable and civil and decent. And to those of you out there that are like that, I'm not going to mention any names specifically. Today, I'm just going to share my thoughts about the election and what I feel this means for the future of our country and where I stand as a U.S. citizen. But again, there's always an exception to every rule. And I'm not trying to offend anyone. I want to share how I feel, because I'm going to be honest with you folks. I feel pretty shitty. I feel really, really down and uncertain about our country's future, having Donald Trump back in office. And I'm not alone in this. Many people that voted for Harris feel the same way. I've watched a few videos on YouTube this morning with other people that feel the same way as I do. And there's a lot more to watch. There's a lot of content out there, and there's going to be a lot more coming. And of course, you know, the Trump supporters are going to come out and say, oh, you're just whining and crying like a big baby since Trump won. I'm not sitting here crying. Trump won fair and square. Like, let's be real about it. I'm not here to argue the results like Trump did in 2020. You know, putting out false accusations that there was widespread voter fraud, which there wasn't, right? You're not going to see any Democrats, aka liberals, or the Harris campaign try to say there was widespread voter fraud or try to contest the election. Trump won fair and square. You, the people of the U.S., have chosen. You chose him, right? The majority of you chose him. But I'm also going to hone in on why I feel you folks chose him. And I'm also going to hone in on what you folks don't understand, what this truly means to you, despite what you think Trump has promised you, right? And most importantly, all of you are forgetting all of the felony charges and criminal activity that Donald Trump's been a part of over the past several years. And that's what breaks my heart the most. What breaks my heart the most is that you Trump supporters out there have seen him be convicted of 34 felonies. You've seen him incite, you know, the insurrection at the Capitol. You've seen him do all of this just unjust, unreasonable stuff. Yet you still voted for him. You basically voted for a convicted felon of not just 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 counts, 34 counts. Now, I have to ask you folks respectfully, listen, I'm not here to complain or to whine. I'm just here stating facts that some of you or many of you or all of you that voted for him don't seem to understand. This guy's been convicted of 34 felonies. And now that he's going to be back in office, he's going to pardon himself as much as possible and pretty much get away with this. And I have to ask you, MAGA Trump supporters, what type of example does this set for our future, for our children? Is it the right example to set? We should have never, as a country, allowed someone with 34 felonies, someone that incites violence at our Capitol building, someone that instead of graciously accepting defeat in 2020, went on to cry like the biggest crybaby and said there was widespread voter fraud, got Rudy Giuliani involved, and basically pretty much almost got Rudy Giuliani disbarred because Rudy was feeling like I guess I got to lie for this guy. He's paying me. So I got to go along with something. I'm sure Rudy knew there was no widespread voter fraud. I almost felt like, Rudy was forced to lie on behalf of Trump. And then when the COVID pandemic hit after Biden won the election, before he was inaugurated, during Trump's last few months in office, instead of Trump focusing on tackling one of the biggest problems and issues we've dealt with that was killing people, the COVID virus, he went golfing at Mar-a-Lago. Do you folks not remember this? And I'm sure you do, but are you giving him a free pass? And again, what example does this set for our children? In essence, what you're saying is that our future children can go and commit crimes, and it's okay to do so because our president commits crimes all the time. Our president has been convicted of 34 felonies. And now, because he gets back in office, he's going to pretty much pardon himself as much as possible. Think about our future and how it's going to affect them. In my opinion, Donald Trump is the wrong example for our future. I'm not saying this because I'm a slight left liberal. I'm saying this because I guess I used to be proud to be an American, and I'm no longer proud to be an American, but I guess I'm still technically an American, right? Like the title states, I'm no longer proud to be an American. I'm proud to be Californian. So I'm pretty much at the point right now where I don't want to be an American anymore. And to you Trump MAGA supporters, you may not care about how I feel. You don't, because the thing is, you're no different than Trump. You're very selfish, unreasonable, and inconsiderate of other people's feelings, wants, and needs. So how can I expect any of you to be rational and reasonable to be able to understand the reality of all this? Right? I don't want to be an American anymore. But I still like living in California. I love where I live. And in California, we've got a great government system. It's not perfect, but I feel it's far better than our federal government. I feel our government here in California at a state level is better than our federal government. And most of you MAGA Trump supporters from the Midwest and the South, where most of the red states are at, right? You criticize our government. You've criticized Gavin Newsom. You've criticized the way we live our life out here. But at the same time, you also don't realize how important California alone as a state is to the Union, is to the entire U.S. You don't realize how much we've done for you and we continue to do for you. And that's what I'm going to share with you folks here today. For those of you that are coming across this for the first time, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Elias Melas. I am the president and founder of the Genuine Networking Association, or GNA for short. I founded the organization in 2011. We used to run in-person networking events in person. We used to help people that were aspiring entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs, and we would connect them with their next power partners and possible clients. At the same time, we also taught personal development, which is what we now do here on YouTube. And that's the primary purpose of the GNA nowadays, is teaching personal development, not only to, aspiring entrepreneurs or people in the business world, but at a personal level too, because personal development is extremely important. And I feel the reason why many of these MAGA Trump supporters are unreasonable is because they're not open, and they've never been open to personal development and bettering themselves as a human being. Because bettering yourself as a human being has nothing to do with who you vote for, your political party choice or preference. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin, your age, your race, your sex, your national origin, or even your sexual orientation, which Donald Trump has a problem with. Donald Trump, in general, has a problem with progression. In California, we're one of the most progressive places on the planet, and I'm all for that. Now, I may not agree with every aspect of progression, but who am I to say how other people live their lives? Who am I to say if you are someone that is now allowed here in California to select either male, female, or non-binary, which means gender non-conforming, which means that whether you're technically biologically male or female, you can choose to not identify as a male or female. In my own personal opinion, I think it's kind of weird, but who am I to say how you choose to live your life? If you want to be non-binary, that's cool. The only thing I care about is how you treat other people and your attitude. But Donald Trump doesn't think that way, and he wants to cut funding to these people. Right? So let's go ahead and get this going here. The first part of the show, I'm going to talk about California. Then I'm going to take a break and then come back for the second part, which I'll get more into other Trump stuff. Okay. Let's go ahead and switch over to the browser source. Okay. As you can see on your screen there, this is a Google search regarding California being the world's 5th largest economy. Yes, California is the world's 5th largest economy, and it has been for the past 7 years. California's GDP, gross domestic product, in 2023 was $3.9 trillion, which is 14% of the U.S.'s GDP. So there are 50 states, right? And if each state equally contributed to the U.S. GDP. On average, each state would be contributing 2%. California contributes 14% of the U.S.'s GDP. Per capita, California's GDP per capita is higher than the U.S., China, Germany, and Japan. That's huge. That's astronomical. California could be a country on its own. I believe California alone it has more population than the entire country of Canada. I believe it's 40 million to 38 million in Canada. Growth. California's economy has grown faster than the U.S. over the past 25 years. Jobs. California creates more jobs than any other state. Absolutely. Yeah, we do have a lot of jobs here. Tourism. California has the largest market share of tourism in the U.S. Technology. And this is what made California really, really big. California is home to many of the world's most valuable tech companies, including Apple, Alphabet Inc., which owns Google, which owns YouTube. So we're talking about Google, YouTube there as part of Alphabet Inc., and NVIDIA that creates graphics cards. Actually, I think NVIDIA now has surpassed Apple as the most profitable company out there. Those are the three biggest companies right there, and they're right here in California. Headquartered companies, 11 of the Fortune 100 companies and 53 of the Fortune 500 companies are headquartered in California. And I don't have to repeat what I just showed there. Let's now talk about how important is California to the U.S., okay? Because lots of you MAGA Trump supporters out there like to criticize us, like to call me a liberal sack of you-know-what. You like to call us California. Yet, if you took us out of the equation, how much would that affect you? And if you think the economy is bad, and you take California out of it, how much worse would the economy be? California is important to the United States in many ways, including its economy, culture, and military presence. Economy. California has the largest economy of any state with a gross state product of $4 trillion in 2024. So that's been updated. $4 trillion. It is also the world's largest subnational economy. California's GDP contributed the most to the country's GDP in 2023. We saw that on the other screen there. Culture. California is home to Hollywood, the world's oldest and largest film industry. It is also known for its entertainment, sports, music, and fashion. Okay? That's obvious. We all know that. We know Hollywood's in Southern California. I've been there many times. Military. California has more military bases than any other state with 32 defense installations. California is third in the country for defense contracting spending. Okay. So we've got one of the hugest military presence here in California. Agriculture. California has been the country's top food producing state for 50 years. Let me repeat that one more time. California has been the country's top food-producing state for 50 years. It produces 13% of the country's agricultural supply and 99% of some foods like almonds, walnuts, raisins, and olives. And guess what? I've been to these places here in the Central Valley. I believe Blue Diamond Almonds is in near Modesto, California. If you don't know where Modesto is, remember the Scott Peterson case? That's where him and his deceased wife used to live. If you go further down south, and I can't remember the city, it's near Fresno, California. The Sun-Made Raisin Company is there, and it is a co-op owned by many farmers. So all those raisins you folks love, the Sun-Made Raisins, they come here from California in the Central Valley. And olives as well. How many of you like olives with your salad? Well, I'm Greek. We love olives, especially Greek olives, but those come from Greece. But I love black olives. I love olives, right? So our agriculture is absolutely critical to the entire U.S. Yet, you folks take us for granted. The MAGA supporters, you take us for granted. The people in the Midwest and the South, you take us for granted, right? Technology. California is home to 35 of the world's 50 leading AI companies. It is also a leader in new business starts, venture capital funding, manufacturing, and high tech. So that Android or iPhone that you have comes from here, Silicon Valley in California. Without us, you wouldn't have that. So I'll tell you what, if you really don't like California, then throw your iPhone or Android in the trash and go back to the old ways, because we created that technology for you. And you take it for granted and you run your mouths all over the internet, trash talking people that have given you the opportunity to speak your mind very easily through these devices we created here in California. Now, they might be produced in other countries, which Donald Trump wants to bring more manufacturing back to the U.S. And you folks think that that's going to fix the economy. It might bring more jobs, but more jobs, we've got to pay more money. Inflation's going to be worse than it is. Why can't you folks put two and two together and understand that? The reason why things haven't gone way out of control with the economy is because we outsource manufacturing to other countries such as China because it's much cheaper. So your $1,500 iPhone and Android, if it was manufactured here, might be $2,500. Maybe $3,000. They're already expensive enough. You want to double the price of things that you use every day that you now see as necessary? And you're already complaining. They're already expensive enough. But manufacturing all that here would almost double the cost, if not double the cost. But Trump wants to bring more manufacturing back to the U.S., which, hey, that would be a great idea if it didn't affect the economy, if it didn't affect inflation. It would 1,000,000%, in my opinion, affect inflation. So that's a poor idea, in my opinion. And here's a big one right here. Global supply chain. California's port in Los Angeles is the busiest in the country, handling about 40% of the goods imported to the U.S. Now, let's talk about what would happen if California was able to part ways from the U.S. and be an independent country within itself, right? Which I believe there's some legislation against that happening, but that could always change, right? Anything can change, right? Let's go over here. This is from the Cal Matters site. This is back in 2020. This was before the election in 2020, but they were talking about back then if Trump were to win. Could California really go at it alone? Okay. In summary, Governor Gavin Newsom uses the term nation state to describe California. We are a nation state. Without us, I don't think, in my opinion, that the U.S. would survive without California. Could it make it as a separate nation, and should it try? In my opinion, I think we can, and I think we should. Because honestly, I just don't want to deal with this BS rhetoric from uneducated, uninformed, unreasonable people. Now, forget about the fact about them being uneducated, and uninformed. Let's talk about unreasonable people. A lot of these people voted for Trump just because they hate liberals. It's not a good enough reason to vote for someone. Or they hate California, that's primarily liberal Democratic based. Yet California, does more for you than even the entire federal government does. Well, the government's able to give you all these resources because of what California contributes to the federal government. Gavin Newsom isn't the first governor to describe California as a nation state, but he has been the term's most vociferous, I can't even pronounce that, gubernatorial exponent. Vociferous. Now, that's a word that most people aren't going to know the definition, so let me look it up on a different browser that's not on the screen. It's to cry out loudly. Loud and proud. That's what it means. Okay. Well, he has reason to do that. People have reason to do that because of how much California has contributed, not only to the U.S., but globally as well. And that's why I think a lot of people hate us, is because we're such a strong state, independent of the U.S. What does it mean? Newsom offered this explanation in a recent interview with The Atlantic magazine. Look, we're the fifth largest economy in the world, 40 million strong. We're as diverse a state as exists in this country, with 20-some% of the state foreign born. Yeah, like my parents were foreign born. They came here. They did it legally. They had my brother and I. He continued this narrative of punching above our weight, this narrative around being a nation state. That narrative is a big part of the California spirit of being dreamers and doers. This entrepreneurialism that the future happens here first. It does. We've created a lot of stuff for the rest of not only the rest of the country, but the rest of the world. The rest of the world is benefiting from iPhones and Androids that were built, that were created here in California. There's a pride in that. There's perhaps an arrogance at times. Yeah, we can get a little arrogant, but that happens to the best of us, right? I try to be more humble, but if you're going to create life-changing products in your state, then, in my opinion, you have a right to feel a little arrogant at times, or be happy about it, right? And Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, who created the smartphone by creating the iPhone, and then Google created Android, and that's how that was born. But it was Steve Jobs that created that. He was very arrogant, but could I blame him? God rest his soul. I wasn't a big Steve Jobs fan, but he created something that has now changed the world, that everyone can't live without. With its population and geographic culture and economic diversity, California does indeed have many of the characteristics of a nation. We do. And its government have at times sought their own connections with foreign nations, whether or not they comported at the moment with Washington's policies. Well, that's probably going to happen a lot over the next 4 years with Trump in office. I'll tell you, California, we're going to be fighting a lot of that stuff that Trump tries to do. Newsom's predecessor, Jerry Brown, was easily the most active governor in forging what amounted to a separate international relations policy, spectacularly symbolized by participating as a de facto head of state in global conferences on climate change. That's fantastic. And, global warming, still a big issue. We haven't talked about it a lot lately, but it's still a big issue. That's part of climate change. We got to look forward to the future when we're not going to be around, because the people in the future are going to be suffering from our mistakes or preventative measures we didn't take to protect our planet for them. And if you're going to be selfish and say, oh, I don't care, I'm not going to be around, then that clearly proves the kind of human being you are. Very, very selfish, very unreasonable, okay? Very self-centered, egotistical, and you severely lack empathy. And those are the types of people I want nothing to do with. I don't want to be around anyone like that. The separateness of California from the federal government obviously widened when Donald Trump became president. And it's going to happen again. This was written in 2020 before Biden beat Trump. But now that Trump's back in office, he's going to be back in office in 2025. He won the race yesterday here in 2024. You're going to see a very wide separation. And you're going to see our government here in California pretty much challenge anything and everything that Trump does or tries to do. Especially during the first 2 years of his presidency, when Republicans also controlled both houses of Congress. But it's always been there regardless of the White House's occupant. Yeah. Yep. Well, the Republicans now are controlling everything. And that's wow. Wow. I mean, wow. God bless America. That's all I got to say. It raises, not for the first time, the question of whether California could or even should go it alone, evolving from a nation state into an independent nation, or more accurately returning to its brief pre-statehood bear flag republic days. Well, wasn't the California Republic more... Didn't we used to be like a conservative state? The California Republic was more when I believe the state was red. Now it's blue. I don't think we should go back to those days, but I think we should become our own independent nation. That's how I feel about it. Honestly, the way things are gonna go with Trump being back in office, I don't want to be a part of the U.S. I don't consider myself an American right now. Even though I'm technically an American citizen, I'm here legally. I was born here. In my eyes, I don't consider myself an American, and I'm not proud to be an American. I'm not proud of what's happening here in this country. And I've never felt that way before. Not even when Trump won the first time, I didn't feel it. Right now, I feel we were headed in the right direction when Biden beat Trump. It stopped all his BS. Trump had the lowest approval rating in the history of any president, I believe, when he left office, or about to leave office back in 2021, that was, right? 2020, 2021. Anyway, the practical processes would be daunting even where the rest of the nation agree to allow California to break away. And yeah, I believe there's some, regulation or law in place where that can't be done, but you can fight any. I mean, look what Trump's done, with abortion. Would, for instance, the remaining 49 state nation insist that California pay for all of the federally owned property in its borders? Well, if California broke away, I'm sure we would have to square up with whatever we owe federally at that point, but then everything resets, and any federal property that would be on California grounds would have to abide by our nation's rules, because we're no longer a part of your nation. You're no longer a part of ours, or you're not going to be a part of ours, right? Would California have to repay its portion of the federal debt? Probably. I would say currently about $25 trillion. If I was the California government, I'd find a way to cough that up and move on. Because let me tell you this, California alone, technically pulling away, if they were able to pull away, I think it would destroy the U.S. I think California becoming its own nation, paying off its debt, and us Californians here, we live as an independent country, right? I think it would destroy the rest of the U.S. And then we would be able to do what? Import exporting, right? Would we be able to, would it be considered exporting, even though technically we're still bordered across U.S. states? It would be exporting. There would be import-export fees. How about Social Security, Medicare, or military defense? We would have our own system. And it would, let me tell you, it would be run much better than the federal system. Medicare, we got a great Medicare program here. Military defense, we got the best military in the country. We can subcontract our military and charge the U.S. whatever the hell we want. Were California to become a nation, it would occupy a position roughly analogous to Canada. Maybe it means similar to Canada, similar to Canada, a separate and presumably friendly country that indirectly depends on the adjacent United States for a strategic defense, and therefore must only maintain a small military force. Well, I think California alone could survive without the U.S. I think it is the only state that can survive without the U.S. based on everything we've got and our economy being the 5th largest in the world. And we've got reasonable people here. Here's the thing. In California, there are a lot of Republicans here, and I know a lot of them. I used to network with them in person, and they're good people. Like, I don't have a problem with Republicans that are reasonable. I have a problem with unreasonable, fake Republicans that I like to call the alt-right. Because I think anyone that's voted for Trump is not a real Republican, because Trump himself is not a real Republican. Trump used to be a liberal, and then when he realized the only way I'm going to get into office and be able to convince people that I'm worthy of being the president is to become a fake conservative, right? That's the truth of the matter. That's the truth of the matter right there. And same out here on YouTube. A lot of creators that used to be liberal changed to be a fake conservative because there are more active fake or overall conservatives on YouTube that will tune in and donate to them or watch their videos, and they'll make more ad revenue. That's the truth of the matter. I've been doing this for 6.5 years, and I've seen this play out this way. If anyone has seen all this happen in the last 6 years, with the amount of time I've spent out here on YouTube, it's myself. So I'm speaking facts to you. I'm speaking absolute facts that I've seen. Canada has 38 million people, just slightly fewer than California. Yes, I was right about that. And a national budget of $355 billion a year. California's current state budget tops $200 billion, not counting another $100 billion or so that the federal government adds principally for health and welfare programs. So if you add that, we're a $300 billion state. Our national budget is $300 billion, but we cover $200 billion. Could we, on our own, make up for the $100 billion? I'll tell you this. I'm sure every single California, well, not every single one. I'm sure there would be some people even in California. There are some alt-right people in California, not as many as in other states, but I'm sure there are some conservatives or fake conservatives in California that, would challenge this, right? But, I think most Californians would have no problem paying additional taxes to make up for that extra $100 billion, to have the freedom away from the very, very corrupt federal government, especially under Donald Trump. Now, I'm not saying our federal government here in the U.S. is corrupt at everything. There's always been corruption. There's always been BS happening. But it's never been as corrupt as when Donald Trump's been in office past, and now it's going to become even more corrupt, in my opinion, for the next 4 years. So I personally would be willing to pay even 5% more in taxes to free ourselves from the rhetoric of Donald Trump and the U.S. federal government. And we could sustain ourselves just fine. We could have our own, Obamacare, Affordable Health Care Act, which is subsidized by the state instead of the federal government. Right? Because how much are we giving to the federal government? How much are our taxpayers in California giving to the federal government? And we get $100 billion of that back. So, I mean, we could sustain ourselves without the U.S. No doubt about it, in my opinion, of course. Overall, according to a new study by the Rockefeller Institute of Government, Californians are paying $428.7 billion a year in federal taxes. It's offset by $430.6 billion in federal spending in the state, money that flows into state and local government coffers, direct payments such as Social Security, pensions, and Medicare, and federal contracts and services. Now, additionally, California would have to take on, Social Security and all that people have already put into the federal government, and the federal government, would have to give us credit for the people that have paid into Social Security at a federal level. It would have to be done at a state level, right, or at a independent country level within the state of California if we part ways from the U.S. In theory, therefore, it could be a financial wash where new state taxes to replace those now paid to Washington, but that doesn't count the additional unknown costs of being a nation, such as creating and maintaining new military, diplomatic, scientific research, and intelligence agencies, and a central bank. We could figure it out. California's figured many things out. We can figure this out. We've got the people, the smart people. We've got the high-tech industry. We've got the best military here. We've got the largest amount of white-collar workers. And I'm not trying to criticize blue-collar workers, but we have a lot of intelligent, reasonable people here. So we can figure it out, in my opinion. California could probably make it as a separate nation, of course, and be free to set whatever policies it wishes without having to joust with the federal government. But should it? At this point, Trump being back in office, I would not be surprised if California, whether they would expect this to happen or not, wouldn't try to separate themselves just to even stir up the pot. So think about it. I believe there are laws in place that, protect the U.S. from states separating and becoming their own nations, right? But what if California said, I want to fight those laws? And fighting those laws would get a lot of attention on California and would use a lot of Donald Trump resources. And it would basically force Donald Trump to shift gears and focus on preventing California from separating, which could be devastating to the country, right? Do you see? Honestly, because Trump's going to play the game. So if Trump's going to play the game, then us Californians should play the game better. I'm not big on playing games, but sometimes people that game the system, which they shouldn't, the only way you can make things right is to try to game the system better than them on the flip side. So that's what I think could possibly happen. Let's wait and see. One more before I take a break here. This is on the CNN audio website. This was a podcast that you can listen to. And it's called What If California Seceded from the United States, meaning, left the U.S. And I just want to go scroll down and read a part here that was mentioned by one of the people on the podcast. I have not heard this podcast, but I have read this, and I will go listen to the podcast. Seems very interesting. Let me see here. This would be a breakup of the Union. This would require an act of Congress. It would require an act of Congress. And right now, that Congress is controlled by, the Republicans, it probably would be much more difficult, if not impossible, to happen. So, this is what this Chris guy says. That sounds pretty unlikely. Why in the world would the other 40? I think it meant to say would. Why in the world would the other 49 states ever want to give up the state with the fifth largest economy in the world? Well, one scenario could come down to politics, and that's exactly where we're at. Donald Trump being in office, we're not happy about that here in California. We're not happy about that on the West Coast. Washington State, let's see, right above California, you got Oregon. Right above Oregon, you have Washington State, 3 blue states, right? The entire West Coast is liberal. Quite frankly, we should have, Washington and Oregon join us, because Washington has some great companies like Starbucks and stuff, and they also have Costco in Kirkland, Washington, right? And Oregon has a lot of great farming, and they grow a lot of great fruits. They also have the Tillamook company out there. That's a big company, right? So think of it this way. Think about if the entire West Coast separated from the U.S., how much would that destroy the U.S. if we did that? In my opinion, food for thought. Just think about it, okay? And no one else is talking about this. I am. Let's imagine a scenario involving the 2024 election, which has happened. This was before the election. But now we're here. Trump basically won. He won. And remember, this is just a thought experiment, not a political prediction. Well, I love thought experiments. I love example purposes. I get ridiculed by the opposite party for using example purposes, because my example purposes are spot on typically. Republicans win a congressional majority. Well, they did. That's what happened. And the White House. Maybe it's Donald Trump 2.0. Well, yes, they won the congressional majority and the White House. And what is Donald Trump 2.0 going to be? A reformed saint? A reformed saint? No. Maybe it's Ron DeSantis. No. Maybe it's someone we've never heard of. It doesn't matter. The important thing here is that Californians all of a sudden decide they want out, and the Republicans in control start to think that idea sounds pretty good. Well, you know what? If Californians wanted to leave the Union, wanted to leave the U.S., and Trump said, F it, let them leave, right? Let's say Trump's the kind of guy that would say, F California, let them leave, right? Fuck California, right? Without even realize how much that would destroy not only the nation's economy, but the global economy. He wouldn't even care what kind of a trickle-down nationwide or global effect it would have. He would just care about saying, hey, fuck it, we don't need them. Now, if he agreed to that, I don't think Congress would let it happen. I just don't think it would just, I would like to see it happen. I would love to see California be its own country. And I would love to even have, Oregon and Washington join us. We can make our own little nation, right? On the West Coast, right? Because in my opinion, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. There are good people in all parts of the country, and there are people that I question your mental and emotional stability, and your decision-making process. And, I question you being able to be a reasonable person, right? Or I question your comprehension skills. But the majority of reasonable people, from what I've seen, are out here on the West Coast. That doesn't mean there aren't reasonable people in every state. There are, but the majority of them are on the West Coast. So think about if we separated ourselves from you. What would you folks do? California is just very different, says Lee. It is a very liberal state, has been for the last 20, 25 years. I'm proud of that. So there are some quarters that probably be somewhat happy to say, yeah, you know what? California can go off and beyond. It sounds okay with me. California has more electoral votes than any other state, 55, and it has the most congressional representatives, 53, 42 of which are Democrats. So if you're a Republican in a position of power, it becomes a lot easier to maintain that power for a long, long time without all those reliable Democratic votes in the way. So as a pure power play, maybe Cal exit doesn't sound too bad. Now, I believe there's a website here, right here, back on the Cal Matters. Cal exit might become more than a theoretical notion if Trump were to be reelected. And this was back, let's go back up here, in 2020. He was not reelected then. Biden beat him, but he was reelected right now in 2024 against current Vice President Kamala Harris. So, if you go over here, Cal exit, so here we are. And you can go and read about us, campaign history. Go check out yescalifornia.org. I'm not going to go through this, but just check it out. Okay? So one more thing, like I was saying, this is interesting. So this Lee guy says, yeah, from the standpoint of Republican president, that pesky fly that's always buzzing around your head, yeah, wouldn't you love to be able to get it out the door and close it? You see, that's how Trump would think. Trump would be like, fuck California, we don't need them, without even realizing how much that would destroy the U.S. And here's the thing. Again, if California became its own nation, and let's say we even added, California, we added Oregon and Washington State, the states above us, right? And we created this our own country, right? Everything we create here, we could charge a premium to the U.S., right? How much more would things go up if Trump was like, yeah, screw California. If they're going to be a pesky fly, let's just get rid of the fifth largest economy in the world. That's been a huge factor in keeping our country going. This is what you folks don't understand. All right. Let's go back to full screen. I'm going to take a quick break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do a refresher on Trump as president. I'm going to remind all of you that voted for Trump what you voted for. I'm not upset. I'm disappointed. I'm scared about the U.S.'s future. Right? I'm not upset. He won fair and square. If I was going to be upset, I would not be upset at Trump. I would be upset at our own citizens for voting someone in that has a rap sheet longer than most criminals. I just don't get it. And we're going to talk about what he's done to remind you. You all know, but I'm going to remind you because you folks want to forget about that, right? And just celebrate, right? And then we're going to talk about, Trump coming back to the White House. What does this mean for his criminal charges, his 34 felonies and other things that he's been convicted of? What's going to happen to Trump's November sentencing? All right. Let's cue up some royalty-free YouTube music. And take a little break here. All right. Music is all queued up. I'm going to step away and take a quick break. If you're here live, I should be back in about 7 or 8 minutes. If you're watching the replay, you can just if you're on your phone, you tap forward until I come back. Skip all that. Save yourself some time. If you're on your laptop or desktop, you can scrub through it. You know what to do, right? Anyway, stick around. We'll be right We're back. We are back live. And I think we are just going to scratch it and get right back down to business. Welcome back to hold on a second here. We're good. Welcome back to a very special episode of Navigating the Modern World with Eli, live here on YouTube, live here on the main channel, GNA, Genuine Personal Development. I've been doing some live streams here instead of the live streaming channel, which you can find out about below in the description, GNA2, Genuine Live Personal Development. Make sure you subscribe there because I do my Walking with Purpose streams there, and I will be doing a Walking with Purpose stream later today. And, giving some people an opportunity to share their thoughts about this show. I actually have disabled the chat and the comments because I don't want to be interrupted. And I know how crazy people get when you're sharing your thoughts and opinions. And I just wanted to share my thoughts and opinions uninterrupted. And that's why YouTube gives you the options to turn off things like, chat and comments and all that. But I'll give people the opportunity to respond later on. And, make sure that you're subscribed to GNA2, Genuine Life Personal Development. I'll be going live later this afternoon and, asking you for your thoughts regarding this stream, or your thoughts about, the election and stuff like that. I'm sure it's going to be pretty crazy. I'm sure I'm going to be blocking a lot of people. As long as you're reasonable, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for reasonable people. If you're reasonable, I don't care if you disagree with my thoughts and opinions. I don't care, as long as you're a reasonable person and you're making a valid effort to make logical sense regarding what you're saying. If you're just looking to attack someone because you're projecting, onto them, that's not going to fly for me. It never has. Anyway, before we get back to it, let me make sure that everything is rolling smoothly here. Boo-doop, boop, boo-doop, 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 boo. GNA2, Genuine Life Personal Development. I'll be going live later this afternoon. And, asking you for your thoughts regarding this stream. All right, we're good. Let's get right to it because I've got a lot to do today, and I'm not gonna let this election affect me. I'm gonna do the best I can with what I've got. All right, so let's go over to the browser screen once again. Let's go there. Come on, stay on the screen there. There you go. Now, this was published from the Republican Eagle. Interesting. On September 27th, 2024. So just a little over a month ago. And let's read what was said here and share our thoughts on it, okay? Donald Trump was the most unqualified, and in my opinion, that was true. The most unsympathetic, true. The most uncaring, true. The most disrespectful, true. The most lawless, true. 34 felonies and, inciting, the insurrection at the Capitol, right? And making false claims of widespread voter fraud in 2020. And the most arrogant, man. Oh, the most arrogant president in American modern times. I would say the most arrogant president ever. Trump left office with the lowest approval rating ever. But some Americans now seem to have forgotten about Trump and his administration misdeeds. Yeah, everyone that voted for Trump, whether I love you or not too fond of you. And again, I have conservative friends that, voted for Trump, and I love who they are as a person. I just disagree with their thoughts about Trump. But even to you folks, you put up to the side all this stuff that if a Democrat did even 1/10 of what Trump did, you would say, oh, they're a criminal. They shouldn't be in. This is the problem with the hypocrisy of you Trump supporters, is that if there was a Democratic nominee that had done similar things that Trump has done, you'd be saying the same things about them as we're saying about Trump. And that's a big issue I have with a lot of conservatives, Republicans, is that you're very hypocritical. And I can't respect hypocrites. I can't. Now he says, let me refresh your memory. Here are 10 of the 25 worst things about Donald Trump in no particular order. Trump sparked division and an uptick in hate crimes. The murder rate went way up under Trump. True. He presided over the largest single-year increase in homicides in 2020. And then that went down during the Biden administration. A number of factors might have contributed to that, but a big reason is gun sales broke records under Trump. Right, because all of these alt-right people feel threatened by liberals that we're trying to take away their Second Amendment gun rights, their right to bear arms. And I'm all for the Second Amendment, but I honestly feel stricter measures should be put in place. I think that people should go very rigorous psychological evaluations once every 6 months, at least once a year, and that still may not be enough. Or that still might not be enough. But you can't just put guns in the hands of mentally and emotionally unstable people. What do you think is going to happen? The same thing that almost took Trump out at one of his rallies. That person was mentally and emotionally unstable. Has Trump learned his lesson from that? Because honestly, that bullet skinned Trump's ear. Had that been off just a little bit, Trump would be done. And I don't wish harm upon anyone, including Trump. But how close did that happen? Because anyone can go buy a gun. Let's see. He bragged that he did nothing to restrict guns as a president in spite of more than 1,700 mass shootings. And I think there was a couple of times where they tried to take out Trump earlier this year. Trump said there were very fine people among the neo-Nazis in Charlottesville chanting, "Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us." I mean, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Oh, and here's one right here. Here's one that Americans should be proud of, the president they chose, because he aligned himself with the Proud Boys, a violent hate group that helped orchestrate the January 6th Capitol attack. Proud Boys stand back and stand by, Trump said. I don't even know if I can read any more of this. This is just unbelievable, right? Furthermore, Trump's not wrong when he said, I got rid of Roe v. Wade. It is entirely because of Trump. It is entirely because of Trump's 3 judicial appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court that 1 in 3 women of childbearing age now live in states with abortion bans. So Trump took away the right to choose for many women. And I think, here's the thing. I think a lot of women voted for Trump when they didn't want to because maybe their husbands or boyfriends forced them to say, hey, we're strict conservatives. We don't we don't believe in abortion. It's not even about that. It's about the right to choose. You're trying to control your women. Trump's trying to control women. Harris wanted to give women the choice. Now, Harris focused, I think, way too much time on the abortion issue, which is part of what I think cost her the race. Amongst, the stuff with Biden and stuff. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like Biden and his approval rating went way down. I mean, I think, Harris fighting for women's rights is a great thing, but I think she focused too much time on that. If I'm going to be fair, that's what I think, one of the main reasons I think cost her the race. One of Trump's Supreme Court appointees, Brett Kavanaugh, remember him? A man accused of sexual assault by multiple women. Trump's White House interfered in the FBI's investigation of Brett Kavanaugh's alleged sexual assaults. All I've got to say is the whole thing that Trump's administration did interfere was just ridiculous. How many things is this guy going to cover up? Also, Trump has been convicted of committing 34 felonies while in office. Right. 34 felonies. The criminally false business filings for which he was convicted in New York were all committed while he was president. And what happened? Oh, we impeached Trump, but he can still serve his term, and he can still run for re-election, and he did, and he won this time. He lost the first time he ran for re-election, but now he won. Forget about the fact that you're conservative, that you're a liberal. Forget about the political party system in general. Human being to human being. Do you think this is right? What would you conservatives say if Kamala Harris was convicted of the same 34 felonies that Trump was? What would you say? You would say she's a criminal. She shouldn't be allowed to run, right? And she should be in jail, right? That's what you would say. Don't tell me you wouldn't, because that's what you would do. But it's okay for Trump to get away with that because he's a part of your party. And you think he's going to change your life for the better. You think he's going to make your life better. I just don't understand some people. I've heard some people that have talked about this. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I saw a few YouTube videos of some other liberals that voted for Kamala Harris, and they're disappointed. But they said that they still have faith in the system and faith in the U.S. And right now, I will tell you this. I have zero faith in the system and zero faith in the U.S. I have zero faith. I have zero faith in the people. Again, I have friends that are Republican that voted for Trump, and I have love for you. And if this cost us our friendship, I'm sorry about that. I'm just stating how I feel about it, right? But I have zero faith in the majority of the people that voted for Trump, because you basically said, hey, we don't care if he's a convicted felon. We don't care if he attacks the Capitol. We don't care if he aligns himself with the Proud Boys, right? We don't care if he falsely claims widespread voter fraud. And everything else that he did during the campaign. And some of the things that were said, I'm not going to mention that. I'd probably get demonetized or removed. And you folks still voted for him. And what are you going to say? Oh, he's the most rawest and realist? If this is Trump being raw and real, what kind of a human being does that make him? If he's showing his true colors, what kind of a human being does that make him? And what kind of a human being does it make you to approve of that? Now let's go to the next page here. From Reuters, Trump's impending return to White House brings criminal cases to a halt. So he's going to pardon himself in everything he can. This is all going to go away because it's called abuse of power, right? Abuse of power. Washington, November 6th. Donald Trump's U.S. presidential election victory on Wednesday will essentially end the criminal cases brought against him. Sad but true. At least for the 4 years he occupies the White House, the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges, Trump, for much of this year, faced 4 simultaneous prosecutions over allegations ranging from his attempt to cover up a hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 campaign, to his attempts to overturn his 2020 election defeat. There was no widespread voter fraud. A New York jury in May found him guilty of falsifying business records tied to the Daniels payment, making him the first former U.S. president convicted of a felony. Yet he was still allowed to run as president and was elected. Trump, a Republican, told an interviewer on October 24th that he would fire U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith. Of course, you're going to fire anyone that would still try to take you down for all the laws you've broken. And they're still going to elect him anyway. Right? Sorry, hang on a second. Special Counsel Jack Smith, who led the federal prosecutions over his attempts to overturn his election defeat and retention of classified documents after leaving office within 2 seconds of being sworn in. Yeah. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. Of course he's going to do that. And cast the prosecutions as politically motivated. No, they weren't. That's your excuse. You're a shady businessman, Trump, in my opinion, and it should be a fact, but you're a shady businessman. The American people have heard these Democratic prosecutors' cases against President Trump, and they're still going to elect him anyway. Yeah, what does that say about your character? What does that say about your ability to be reasonable? What does that say about your mental and emotional state? What does that say about your morals, values, and ethics? Do you folks have morals, values, and ethics? Because anyone with morals, values, and ethics would not re-elect someone with all this. While Trump as president will have the authority to fire Smith and shut down the federal cases against him, that's called abuse of power, he will not have the same control over the New York hush money case or Georgia's prosecution of him for trying to overturn his 2020 loss in that state. But his unique role as president makes it unlikely he will face legal consequences in either case during his term in office. Yeah, that's sad. In essence, he's going to cover it up publicly in front of the whole world as the president. What kind of example does that set for the people or our future youth? What kind of example does this guy set? One more court date is scheduled before he is due to be sworn in on January 20th, though legal experts said that was unlikely to go forward. We don't have to read any more of this. On the CNN Politics website, what happens to Trump's November sentencing? This was written a few days ago. Well, 4 days ago on November 1st, 2024. Donald Trump has several legal tactics to try and stay out of state prison, but his best chance of success turns on the outcome of the presidential election. Well, he won, so he's going to pardon himself. The former president has already twice successfully delayed his sentencing past Election Day on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records to influence the 2016 election by hiding a hush money payment, blah, 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 blah. We've already read this on other articles. His lawyers are gearing up for more legal fights ahead, but no tactic will influence his future more than how voters cast their ballots. Yeah, you folks basically voted to exonerate Trump of things that you would never exonerate a liberal from, or, that no one should be exonerated from. It's 50-50 that he gets sentenced in November, said Karen Friedman. It's not going to happen. A former top official at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and a CNN legal analyst. If he loses the election, I think he gets sentenced, and I think he gets sentenced to prison. If he wins, I don't think this goes forward. Yeah. Yep. And this is where I'm going to. Oh yeah. Well, let me read a little bit more. A victory on election day, she added, is his get out of jail free card. Amen. That's exactly the key statement there. And he won. So he gets exonerated of all his crimes and gets to run the most powerful nation in the world. For years, Trump's legal playbook has been to seek delays. You see, that's what ridiculous conservative people do. They, even if they know they're going to lose, they seek out delays until either, the other people going after them back off, or they can find a loophole to get out of what they've gotten themselves into. A lot of these people, will delay the inevitable on purpose, even if they can't win, just to make other people's lives miserable. Or in this case, to try to find a way to escape what's been done. And Trump's escape, he won the election. People voted a convicted felon in office, and now he's going to be exonerated. He's going to pardon himself. And people are just going to back off because they just don't want to deal with him. They don't want to deal with the guy. At least the people on the right side of things, in my opinion. Anyway, let's go back to full screen and wrap this up. All I have to say is I'm very disappointed. But it is what it is. Trump won fair and square. I can sit here and say he won fair and square. The people chose. Now, I don't have any problems with anyone. You chose. If I were to have problems, it wouldn't be with Trump. It would be, besides what he's done. Regarding the outcome of the election, my problem would not be with Trump. It would be with the U.S. citizens that voted him in. You made a choice. You made a choice not only for yourself or yourselves, but you made a choice for the entire country. And the choice you made did not take everyone's feelings, thoughts, wants, and needs into consideration. You see, when liberals, run for office and get in office, they are the president for all Americans. When conservatives get in office, they're either partially the president for just conservatives, or they're just in it for themselves, like Trump. With Trump, I'll tell you this, even you conservatives out there that think this is going to change your life for the better, you think the economy is going to get better, you think prices are going to go down, you think inflation is going to go down. Even if it does go down temporarily, what's it going to cost us in the future? Right? Life goes on. At this point right now, and at least for the next 4 years, I'm no longer proud to be an American, and I'm not even going to consider myself an American. Even though I technically am, I'm not proud to be an American. I don't want to be an American right now. I'm disappointed at how our country responded to this election. This is going to affect me and other liberals in many ways, including on social media. You're going to have all these Trump supporters that don't give a shit about anyone besides themselves spend more time trash talking liberals than actually trying to do better good for humanity. Well, here at the GNA, we're going to focus on helping people that want help, that are open to help, and we're going to keep it positive. Now, I will do one more show on this on my walk later today and give people a chance to talk respectfully. If you don't talk respectfully, I will ban you on the spot. You will be gone. If you try to troll me, you'll be gone. I'm expecting lots of trolls. I'm expecting haters. I'm expecting a lot of people to create abuse regarding my upcoming afternoon stream. The people that are going to be abusing this are going to be the exact people I've been talking about. But I pray to God that one day you folks get your shit together and realize that this is not about you. This is not about Donald Trump. This is about the people of the United States of America, and also the people of our world, because the United States of America is the most powerful nation in the world. And what we do here not only affects us, it affects everyone globally. My best wishes to each and every one of you. I pray to God that we make it through these 4 years and nothing too crazy happens, but we'll see. With that being said, have a good one. Take care. And as always, be good to each other.